except for Dr. Cowie are actually leaving tomorrow. Dr. Carey's got a late flight tonight, so we're in your hands in terms of your presentations. So certainly don't want to hurry you on our account, but in terms of your flights and those arrangements, happy to proceed as you need to.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, look, I think without further ado, I'll call Mr. Orchiston so he can get on with it and get his aeroplane.
Thank you.
If you're happy for me just to read through my summary, I believe you've got the copy of that there. Yes. I will go through that, and feel free to interrupt me or ask any questions along the way. Sheep and beef farms are complex and diverse systems. There's a high degree of variation in landscapes and natural resources requiring flexibility in farming practices, management, mitigation strategies to achieve these desired outcomes. Approaches that are overly prescriptive can inhibit engagement and innovation and may prevent desired environmental outcomes being achieved. A flexible approach through farm planning or catchment communities can suit a range of farmers and farm systems, and a farm planning approach that allows flexibility would build greater resilience, innovation and adaptability within the primary sector. Matching the appropriate farm system and on-farm management is a key part of the pastoral agriculture to optimise a farm's long-term productivity and environmental success. Farm planning and land use capability mapping is an effective way to do this through consideration of underlying characteristics such as geology, soil, slope, topography, vegetative cover, erosion potential and climate. Farm plans provide flexibility and a tailored approach to understanding and categorising a farm's natural capital assets. They provide a mechanism to assess environmental risks and strengths and a way to review these over time. Farm plans developed in this way may take into account wider business, social and cultural goals. Beef and Lambs New Zealand's approach to farm planning is designed to help farmers ensure the sustainability and profitability of their farming businesses by understanding and managing their natural resources, which including soil, freshwater, biodiversity and climate. It also helps to identify and work towards meeting their own values and objectives, as well as the wider community or catchment objectives and values. The Beef and Lamb New Zealand Environment Module is the first part of a wider farm plan that will also include modules such as biosecurity, health and safety, human resources and animal welfare. However, I do understand that Schedule 30, the Freshwater Farm Plan, is primarily to manage land use as part of the plan's broader purpose of working towards the achievement of freshwater outcomes in Schedule 26. Freshwater ecosystem health may be impacted by farming operations. It is important for farming operations to minimise the associated risks through on-farm actions, mitigation, management and planning. For the sheep and beef sector to continue to meet environmental and freshwater requirements, the flexibility around farming practices and mitigation strategies is needed to ensure farm systems can continue to respond to these changes. They can innovate and remain sustainable while also optimising land use. Schedule 30, clauses 2.2 and 2.3 include appropriate management considerations such as soil type, phosphorus levels, fertiliser application, riparian management and so on, that must be addressed in farm plans and catchment collectives. These are suitable principles to include in a freshwater farm plan to contribute positively to achieving freshwater outcomes, and they provide suitable flexibility to meet the diverse and complex farm systems. There have been surveys carried out that have shown that farm plans are significantly more likely to have implemented management actions such as stock exclusion, buffer zones and riparian planting, and nutrient management practices such as targeted fertiliser use and nutrient budgeting compared to farms with no farm plan. The key contaminants of concern for sheep and beef farms are those that are lost in overland flow, and these are primarily sediment, phosphorus and faecal bacteria. Adoption and implementation of good farming management principles are an effective way to manage contaminants of concern and have demonstrated impacts of improving freshwater outcomes. For example, identification and careful management of critical source areas, and these are areas where a transport vector meets a contaminant source, such as an ephemeral water flow in a gully or swale or a laneway, and they are important to reduce it is an important way to reduce environmental losses to waterways. Reducing the risk of overland flow occurring in these critical source areas or minimising mobilisation of a contaminant source will help reduce the overall risk of losing contaminants to waterways. Management options include retaining vegetative cover in critical source areas, appropriate stock management, non-tillage, stock exclusion at certain times, and maintaining good soil structure. Management of critical source areas during winter grazing activities is an excellent way to mitigate the environmental risk associated with sheep and beef farming activities, with research showing that up to 80% reduction in sediment phosphorus losses being able to be achieved by critical source area management and strategic grazing. Individual farm plans should be active and flexible to change and evolve over time. This ensures they remain relevant to the individual farm and landowner, as well as the communities and catchments, by supplying up-to-date information. Flexibility to develop and modify farm plans ensures evolving understanding and awareness of issues, as well as the ability to capitalise on opportunities that are presented that may contribute to better personal, social, economic or business outcomes. Community-led initiatives and catchment groups that have significant farmer input and leadership, as well as appropriate resourcing, are more likely to achieve objectives reflective of the community's values. While support from external organisation contributes to overall success, groups need to develop their own path rather than following one prescribed to them, and be led and driven by the community and farmer leaders. That's my summary. Happy to take any questions you've got on my my main evidence, if you would like to.
Well, one question relating to your paragraph 12 about well, I'm glad you mentioned critical source areas.
This isn't the summary, is it?
Yeah. You made the reference here that research showing up to 80% reduction of sediment and phosphorus being lost, been able to be achieved through critical source area management. What's that research? What's the reference to that research?
There was some research done in the South Island by AgResearch in 2014. It was published in 2017 around winter grazing in critical source areas. Well, winter grazing in general. It was in a dairy situation, but there were the strategic grazing actions and implementation and protecting that critical source area led to an approximately 80% reduction. The reference for that is in the main evidence there. I can just find that one for you.
That's all I had, thank you.
Okay.
One question. Is there any feature that makes Hawke's Bay a more challenging environment for beef and sheep than, say, other similar North Island hill country regions, say Waikato or Manawatu-Whanganui?
Well, I guess the region, each region will have their own specific issues or things they need to address. So yes, there will be different issues in different areas. I guess I can't comment directly on the issues at stake for the Hawke's Bay, but there will definitely be different issues, and I guess some of those have been highlighted in terms of climatic changes, and also the climate variables in the region, and also the different land uses within those, specifically within the different catchments as well.
So being prone to drought and susceptibility to the long-term effects of climate change might be challenges that are...
Absolutely, definitely needs consideration.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I was just going to mention in paragraph 55 in that main body of evidence was where that reference to the critical source area management was.
I just had a question in regards to farm plans, and specifically I'm just interested in seeing how it works from your experience and practice. And I see that much of the focus is in the operations of a farm. There can be changes in the operations, but I'm just trying to get my head around where there's capital expenditure is required to, as a result of the farm plan, perhaps, moving stockyards from one place on the farm to another, moving pads from one place to another, access roads and those types of bits of infrastructure, and how that works in terms of, that can be a substantial cost, but it might have a significant environmental gain, and just how the farm plan helps facilitate that, those decisions.
That's an excellent point, and that's one of the primary reasons that you would want to have it, or farmer would want to have a farm plan to help manage that process. If there is if it is recognised that some of those actions and capital expenditures might lead to better outcomes, obviously the farmer might have to factor that in over a period of time. It might be several years to help manage that costs, the costs involved with that. And so that going through that planning process will actually help identify where you're going to get the bang for buck, for want of a better way of putting it, and also for those larger capital expenditures, being able to have a program in place that might break that cost up over a period of time.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking through the nuances of correlating where you might have capital expenditure, but you're trying to meet, that might fit very well in terms of farming practice. This is the amount I can afford over a period of time, but there may be some other challenges, like a consent requirement to do something by a particular environmental outcome by a certain period, and certainly with Plan Change 9 and other parts of the plan where there are requirements in a certain amount of time. Do you feel confident that they're built into the farm plan process?
Absolutely. When a farm plan is prepared in a way that involves the farmer taking ownership of those the changes that need to be made, they will be able to plan out how they will meet those. If there's council or regulatory requirements, or if there's requirements, other requirements, then they will be able to plan that out over a period of time and work out how best to manage that process. And if there are things that need to be done by a certain time, they will then have to factor that in with their plan and work towards that.
There's certainly, from your submissions, and we've heard it from others, some trepidation around the professional support that might be required for farm plans, and I'm familiar with a couple of different industries, and they've tried to make it done in such a way where most of the work is done by the landowner or the farmer, those who are undertaking the predominance of the farming activity. In terms of beef and lamb, do you see there's a resource to help people, particularly in the Hawke's Bay, through that process? Have you given any consideration? I know there's some pretty scary numbers around how many staff different regional councils are required to audit or approve or receive or hold or maintain or monitor all these farm plans. Have you given any thought to that?
I guess in terms of beef and lamb has a delivery program for our beef and lamb farm plan, and that does involve the farmer taking ownership of that plan and preparing it themselves, with the help of expert facilitators and expert guidance that they can help prepare their farm plan. Obviously, in the case of the freshwater farm plan that's proposed here, there may be times where they need to get professional help in to help prepare that plan, and I guess they may need it. May need that professional help from time to time, and that professional guidance.
Are you able to just give an indication of how many people, what's the current capacity?
For beef and lamb, yes. I think I have got some numbers in here. I think it was, I think over the last several years that we've put through around about over 300 farmers in the Hawke's Bay region. I think that was in the last 5 years. I just have to double check that. But so there are a number of there's obviously other providers of farm plans and consultants that could come in and draw up farm plans specifically for farmers. So I guess what I'm saying is that there's a variety of ways that people can go around about getting their farm plan, but I would advocate for having strong involvement of farmers in that process.
Thank you.
There was some comment this morning that people don't see the need for a professional to be involved in preparing those farm plans. Do you have any comment on that?
I guess ultimately it will depend on the farmers or landowners that are involved in that. Some farm owners are extremely capable, and I've seen that in my dealings with farmers throughout my work. Some are hugely competent and capable of preparing those themselves. There are definitely others that need help along the way with that process, and there'll be others that may be time constrained or they may be time constrained, and they may choose to go to a consultant to prepare that for them.
So in the first instance, would it be appropriate for the regional council to have an audit role where they're prepared by the farmers themselves to ensure they meet the requirements?
I think that could work, yes.
Thank you.
That's all of our questions. Thank you.
Same question, sir, if Mr Orchardson can be excused for whenever he needs to go to get his aeroplane.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that leaves, last but not least, Mr Kessels.
Good afternoon. Have you received this summary evidence?
We have it in front of us, yes?
Thank you. Thank you. Would you like me?
It's no longer warm, but yep, we've received it.
Hot off the press. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. I'll start at paragraph 5.
That would be great, thank you.
Once I find my glasses. I consider the approaches and methods which are likely most effective for the management of farming activities in relation to achieving freshwater ecosystem health and biodiversity require catchment planning which is owned by the community through collaborative processes rather than imposed through more traditional regulatory or commanded control approaches. The potential benefits of collaborative processes can be wide-ranging and have long-lasting impacts. These approaches and methods have the following matters in common. They enable flexibility, adaptation and innovation. They seek to engage farmers and provide a sense of ownership of the solutions practices. They are spatially appropriate and scalable to allow for local solutions on farm and catchment to address regional problems. And they enable an effective management and mitigation focus on achievement of desired ecosystem health and biodiversity enhancement outcomes, especially where multiple stresses and diffuse effects are involved. The proposed implementation method and rule set of TANC are likely to encourage and incentivise best practice in terms of enabling widespread collaborative management through instigation of catchment collective freshwater plans and freshwater farm plans. In particular, I regard Schedule 30 to be a comprehensive mechanism to allow Council to achieve the policy direction and water attribute standards of Schedule 26. There are a large number of existing examples of community-based ecosystem management approaches to addressing water quality and freshwater ecosystem and biodiversity health, which appear to be assisting national and regional policy directives in New Zealand. I've experienced with some of these catchment group initiatives and found that good management practice outcomes resulting are generally consistent with best practice. In some circumstances, I've also seen innovation and collaboration with research scientists leading to new innovative land use mitigation and management measures being developed. Furthermore, 2011 state on the basis of review of a Motueka integrated catchment management research project that a primary observation from this research is that catchment management is more likely to achieve agreed objectives when it empowers stakeholders, taking into account their aspirations and values and adapting as those aspirations and values change. Unless an effective social context and decision-making framework is provided, complex or what we call wicked problems like land and water management are unlikely to be addressed resolved. This not only risks environmental damage, but also a lost opportunity for social cohesion. It may also reduce the potential for social cohesion in the future. Catchment collective groups, when supplemented by regional council, existing water quality and environmental monitoring programs, do provide opportunities to better understand indicators of land management actions. Indicators of success should involve monitoring of a range of water quality and ecological health metrics. But also indicators can be quantification of the location and or intensity of the action management actions, such as the area of riparian planting, kilometres of stream-back fence, number of farm adopted sediment reduction practices. I am supportive of the approach of Schedule 13 of TANK. Schedule 13 provides a clear list of requirements of the catchment collective plans and the FMPs, with opportunities for industry programs to support farmers at an individual or collective level. The requirement for a governance structure to be implemented and identification of environmental outcomes to be developed in respect to achieving Schedule 26 through targeted mitigation measures are sufficiently comprehensive to address the critical governance and catchment-specific ecological health improvement measures required to allow agricultural communities to work towards assisting council in reaching the desired outcomes of TANK. In addition, by using these plans as a measuring platform of land management practices and as part of the wider matrix of information sources and data, they will likely provide a valuable contribution to monitoring and understanding land management actions and to applying adaptive management approaches where further actions can be targeted at both local and catchment-wide scales. In terms of having certainty that the collaborative approach encouraged by TANK will lead to effective outcomes, I note that Section 42A report makes specific mention of Policy 26, which lists the ways in which Council can enforce or encourage compliance should landowners not wish to go down the Schedule 30 route, or should a plan not be approved by Council. I agree with this analysis and would support any amendments to Schedule 30 that require the members of a collective group to agree to participate in council conflict resolution service should issues arise. In my last paragraph is something I've sort of thought of since preparing my evidence in chief and looking at Schedule 30, and it's a matter that Mr Thompson has put before you and our suggested changes to the schedule, and the audit requirements in Section D of Schedule 30 are important to ensure that adaptive management and, at worst, enforcement of non-compliance can be effectively identified and addressed. To this end, I consider minor rewording of Schedule 30 to provide a clearer linkage between the reporting and review requirements of Section A5 and D would provide assistance to landowners and council staff, providing a steer towards adaptive management approaches. In my experience, implementation of plans on the ground which allow flexibility and room for innovation will likely provide greater ownership and more effective and enduring mitigation solutions. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. We'll see if we have any questions.
Thank you, Mr Kessel. I initially didn't have any questions for you, but since you came all the way here, I thought I would ask you a few. In fact, I suffered from a few bouts of deja vu reading your evidence, and I realised that there are some similarities with your evidence that you prepared for PC1 Waikato Waipa. You make it a lot of you note quite a few references to the benefits of collaborative approaches, farmers getting together to form catchment collectives and similar sorts of entities. As I say, you've referenced that quite a lot. What I don't get out of your evidence is any references or indications that those approaches have resulted in clear and obvious beneficial outcomes to water quality and in-stream ecosystem health. And just wondering, are there any references or any areas of information you can steer us to that provide some clear outcome of those ecosystem outcomes from these sorts of approaches?
I think if you look, I've sort of, the reference that I sort of had most confidence in was John Quinn's sort of involvement in the Whara study,
Yep.
which is the research, the ex-MAF research land between Raglan and Hamilton, hill country, mainly sheep and beef farming there. And I mentioned it in my evidence in chief in paragraph 30, where for that study, and that involved a wide range of stakeholders and mana whenua and local government, and the group representing farmers and researchers. And that study, John published the data from that in 2007, and showed that there was improvement, decreases in export of suspended sediments by 76%, total P by 62%, total N by 33%.
That study, I don't want to pour cold water on it, but I mean that had quite a lot of external assistance, as I understand it, from other entities. It wasn't just a farmer-driven catchment collaborative group, was it?
No, and that's part two of my answer to your question, is that unfortunately, in terms of integrating these community catchment programs into a regimented structure of a regional plan, policy and rule framework is novel. But the important thing, I think, that I'd like to get across is that we know that the good management practices work. We know that the critical things that you've heard from Mr. Orchardson in terms of critical source area management, nutrient management, riparian margin management, and even externality things like just doing pest control to get rid of your deer and possums within, as well as getting your stock off those critical source areas. They do work, and I haven't, as you know, there's a wealth of information providing solid evidence for the efficacy of those good management practices if they're adapted properly, strategically and widespread. And I think that's the second part of my answer to your question is that, and why I looked very closely at Schedule 30 and recommended to beef and lamb that there's a little bit more rigour in that Section 30 in terms of the audit and review process. So there is some adaptive management feedback, and we have greater, surety that these good management practices are going to be implemented properly. Because I believe, and as Dr. Greer said in his evidence, provided these good management practices are adopted, I think he used the word widely, effectively, then we'll see improvements in water quality parameters and ecosystem health parameters, and I'm confident the research is out there to show that.
So a bit of the devil in the detail sort of thing, isn't it? It's all very well having a collaborative approach, but you've got to have teeth within that approach in order to get some real outcomes, I suppose, in terms of improvements in water quality, ecosystem health.
Yes, and that's why Schedule 30 is really important. And I think you mentioned my role in PC1, and I think Schedule 30 is an improvement on the schedule of lists that landowners and catchment collectors have to look at in terms of what's provided in PC1. Well, the original PC1, I must confess, I haven't sort of seen the review in detail.
Okay.
I think it was...
No, that's good. Thank you for that answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was actually going to be my question, was just around the effectiveness for ecosystem health. I was looking at your references, and I couldn't help thinking, I hope that wasn't showing my age, that I knew many of the people that you're referencing, because I did say at the start of this hearing that I was the youngest member of the panel. But thank you very much, Mr. Kessels, and thank you for your time for coming along.
Can I just make
Sure.
an
Sorry.
observation or comment? It's not so much a question, but the integrated management example you give here that Fenimore and Co. did it kind of strikes at the heart of one of the key bits of the plan change. And I keep going back to Te Mana o Te Wai and Ki Uta Ki Tai, which is very much the approach that they used in that, if I'm not mistaken. And I just wondered whether you had any other comments to add to that. There's kind of supporting, I suppose, the more general community-wide view people might take of this kind of...
So I've been lucky enough, and thank you for raising that. I've been lucky enough for the last 5 years or so working with Tauera Nikau and his wife and Matahuru Marae on the edge of Lake Waikari. And that hapu have put together and they're landowners and dairy farmers as well, as well as mana whenua. And that's why I'm so confident of this approach, because people like that who are leaders in the community, in the Māori community and in the farming community, inspire people, are not afraid to jump in and take the risks, who are not afraid to get experts and collaborate with researchers and make meaningful improvements. And that's what actually gets me out of bed in the morning in terms of working in this field for 30 years.
Well, you can argue that a lot of this stuff is just motherhood and apple pie, in a way, you know, I mean, it's what they do all the time. And I'm amazed that the scientists and all those others who kind of, you know, come up with these things that, oh, they're all brand new, but they're not brand new.
No.
They've been around forever.
Yeah.
And I think the Ki Uta Ki Tai thing and the whole integrated management approach that Fenimore and Garth and all of them did here is very reflective of that. You know, they recognised that when they embarked on the research, and they were, I think they weren't necessarily looking to confirm what they already knew, but they wanted to just expand that and get more critical thinking going.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
Well, so that's the case for beef and lamb. You'll probably be pleased to know I don't have any further comments in closing. If anything comes to me, though, I'll seek leave to put it in front of you. The only thing that I have on my list that you want from me is a version of Schedule 26 consolidated with the changes. Yep. I think it's being worked on right now. I might not give it to you this evening because haste sometimes leads to mistakes. So we'll just get a little bit of clear air before we do anything else, but it's nice of them to rush off to get it done. I didn't ask them to, but that's great. So look, that's the case. Thank you for your attention, and Beef and Lamb wanted me to express thanks for working very hard to understand its submission, which has been very evident, so thank you for that. It is noticed and appreciated. So we'll wish you luck, and if it's in order, head home. I'll set myself up for the Highlanders game at 9:30.
Just before you head home, while we're listening on my colleague, Dr. Cow, was just raising issues around Schedule 30 and the scope and submission, and I was clear that I'd seen part of your submission that related to that, particularly specifically to farm plan. So it may require you to come back to us in terms of you just providing us some more information about the scope of your submissions in regards specifically to Schedule 30. So from my reading of it, it's related specifically to farm plans and the support for those. But if you could elucidate us further, that would be appreciated. And there's no requirement for you to necessarily do that right now, but we'd be happy for you to do that in writing to us.
Yes, yes. Well, I thought
It
I'd
is
have-
Friday afternoon, and might be thoughts about travel and the weekend, so we're happy for you to do that at your convenience next week.
Okay, well, that's fine. I was going to see if I could find a quick answer now.
Yeah.
But look, as I say...
Perhaps by next Wednesday, if that
Okay.
would be appropriate. And thank you very much to both yourselves and the presenters who attended today.
Not at all. Very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's much better having your presence than being on Zoom, Mr Thompson.
Oh, yes, yes. Couldn't agree more.
We might just check to see if there is anything we need to do. No, I'm getting a nod. No, there's nothing we need to follow up on the late Friday afternoon. Okay. Any questions from anybody?
Where's the best
Is that
place
you,
to go to
Mare?
watch the
I can see you. I was looking over there, and that looks like your silhouette. Hoi anō, ko kapia tātou hui I tēnei wai, e tukuna te rākau ki a koe e Mare, e whakakapia tātou hui e runga ngā kupua te atua. Ora, he mihi kawana ki a tātou, ko tai mai nei, mai te timatanga o tēnei wiki ki tēnei haura. He mihi kawana kia koutou mo o mahi, mō kaha, mō whakaro kua puta mai I tēnei wiki. I'd just like to thank the council, the submitters, and to my fellow panel members, and particularly our administration, who have been under the weather for the last couple of days, so doing tag team. Thank you very much to those who prepared the food for us. I'm probably going to need a new suit now from sitting down and eating lovely meals every day. We'll see what week 3, maybe we go on a vegetarian diet for week 3 of the hearings, perhaps. But thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and pass it over to Mare to close our hearing at this time.
Mō ngā rā, ia rā, mō ngā rā, e whā, tai atu ki te mutunga, tēnei wā.
Now, Mare's just explaining, we had a conversation on Monday that we thought his karakia, his prayer was strong enough to last us all week. And so he's grateful and I'm grateful and we're grateful that it has, and so he can close.
Right, and tēnei te ia tuku koutou, ngā pai kumihana. Ia rā, kia whakarongo mai, rātou ngā waha kōrero, e pāra me ki ngā hia moimoia, e pāra me rātou nei mahi kei moia rātou. Ko koutou rā ngā kaimahi o te kaumihere, koutou rā ngā legal team. Me ki te tūturu mahi pono o te whānau rāhunga I te rangi. Ia rā te huki nei. Kei a koutou that commit themselves to their marae, their hapu, and their kaupapa holics, and that we get consumed by our commitment to the very things that we dearly aspire to. The hauoranga o tēnei the well-being of this world, both in terms of the hiningaro, the wairua, the tinanga, and of course our environment. Mai te ihoa o Rangi Nui, our Sky Father, tai atu ki kia papa tuanuku, Mother Earth, and of course ngā tamariki. Mō ngā tamariki hei atua, era, ngā wai, ngā whenua, ngā hau, I puta mai ki ngā whakaaro kōrero, mai te timatanga I tērā te marama I Mangaro. Nō reira, tai atu ki te mutunga I tēnei wā, kei te honore e iau e whānau e ki te tono atu ki a koe Kerry, kia timata ai me te karakia, tai atu ki te mutunga. We all need a medal, I think, Antoine, because you've got to have a pretty good kind of attentiveness, especially when you sit to hear each and every one that comes with their own aspirations, their own hope. And as I said at the commencement out at Mangaro Marae, you know, patua te takata, kaua patua te tangata, and I hope that everyone has kept the form, because I'm taken by the aspirations that have been espoused, particularly by our marae, hapu e roti te rohi nei, a he te tauna hauki noi āraro hāro te kau takotono. Mahi mahaku tēnei wā. We're going to have an early day, folks. So in saying that,
okay.
just want to propose you all to the safety of your own home. Don't go back to your offices. I'm sure look the afternoon off. What part of the afternoon? And of course, better not hold up any of those that need to jump on planes. And certainly, Antoine, pleasure to have met all of the respective panel in the context of your ability to kind of, you know, art the whole middle, just really pull back and ask the very partai that needs to be asked of each and every one that's come as presenters. So just as an acknowledgement to all of the present presenters, the submitters, we have another week to go, Antoine, and
At least.
looking at who's going to be, Kerry, who's going to be conveying that, as we're in another part of town, Aburiri, and I'm sure we're going to be in their respective manaki. Nō reira, i tēnei wā, he karakia mutunga. Nō reira, e te atua kaharawa ho, mai te manaki aroha ki te mutunga tēnei wāhanga. E te atua kaharawa, he whakamoimiti ana mātou, he whakawhetai atu e rata me ngā mea pai. Kia tutuki ai pai te hiahia, te whakaro, te kōrero, o te hāpori, te whānau, te marae, te hapu, i puta no, i wainga tēnei wāhanga. O reira, kia tau, kia tātou kato, te atu whai o tō tātou arika i Ukraiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua o tapu, hororia ki te oingoa tapu. Āmen. E rongo tituro whakamaua kia tīna,
Tīna,
haunge huie,
tai kie.
kia ora.
Kia ora, mare. Thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.